Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in to see my update video for the bulb nest. This is a nest I relocated with Herc 1120 a little over a week ago. If you guys have not seen that video, go back and check that out first before checking this out so you can see the progress. If you guys are new to the channel, please subscribe. I have new updates coming out every 3 or so days of some great, awesome Wasp content, and that ranges from yellow jackets to Hornets, bald-faced Hornets, European Hornets, German yellow jackets. I do removals, but I also do these update videos for nests that I've been observing, so primarily bald-faced Hornets, but I also have a little treat coming up of I'm going to be watching the production of a eastern yellow jackets nest that has been making a subterranean nest in my front yard, so I'm pretty excited with that. So you get into this, here's my bald-faced Hornet girlfriend here. She is not happy with the insulation for some of this wire and chewed it off and didn't want to just drop it. She wanted to freaking just carry it away, which I thought was really cool. So I included that and was able to find that little gem nestled into the time lapse. So I was able to slow that down so you guys could see it. Just to do a little once over about the editing here, when I do some zoom in shots, I noticed with the last spout nest when I did some zoom ins that it got a little bit blurry, so I did try to sharpen up the image a little bit. Hopefully it doesn't sharpen it too much once the final render is done. Right now when I'm doing this voiceover, I'm watching it on my software, so it does kind of it changes a little bit once it's rendered down to its final product. So hopefully it looks good in the end, but I'm pretty excited with these shots. There's been a lot of really neat activity, and I was able to get some pretty interesting happenings and goings on. So what you'll notice here is this nest is now being bound to the tree. So it's not just being bound to the wire, as you can see up there at the top or the bottom of the yellow wire, but see where that girlfriend there, she is actually attaching the envelope to the tree. So they are working on getting this thing just freaking bigger and bigger. I'm really excited to see how they incorporate the wire with the comb as they start building the nest, the comb itself, once they start building that out further and seeing how they do that. What's really neat about this is that once this is at the end of the season and the nest is done for the year, or done permanently, we'll be pulling it off the tree and seeing that wire and seeing how it's incorporated into the whole nest. It's just gonna be super cool. I'm excited to even do a video of that. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. This is just this has been a really busy last 7 days for these guys. There's about 5 or 6 adult bald-faced Hornets that are doing primarily all the work as far as construction goes. But the queen is also back. I thought that she had flown out, and well, the first day she did fly out, but I didn't realize she had come back. So I did find her in some of these shots. I found that she had come back to the nest, and she's keeping this nest to be a productive nest for the rest of the season, which is great. So she should be putting out some reproductive queens then by the end of the season. So this will be a fully reproductive nest then too, which is cool. And I actually hope to grab a few of those queens before they venture off and winter over somewhere. So I also got multiple angles of this nest too, because there's a lot of neat nooks and crannies on this nest, which I thought were really cool. So here you can see girlfriend just kind of building some more ribbing against the tree for extra support and structure. And you can kind of see some of the little bit of perforations in the nest as they start building the envelope. There's some what I would think to be some good like cooling aspects, since it's not one solid piece of paper. It's got a little bit of breathing capabilities to it. So you get some really cool shots here of them building the ribbon envelope there as this structure gets bigger. And it has been really neat to watch how coordinated they are. When they come back, they swap the food for the larva, they swap the cellulose saliva that they make into the envelope, and then about day 3 and 4, then you start seeing multiple wasps building nests on different parts at the same time, which is really cool, because I'm excited to see just how quick that the production of the envelope and how big the nest is going to get in a short amount of time, just because there's going to be multiple adults building at the exact same time. So what another cool part of this here that you'll notice is the queen actually does come out. Let's see if I can spot her right away. She doesn't stay out on the nest very long. She usually goes right back in when she comes back from foraging. I would think probably within the next few days that she's going to be done going out and foraging, because her daughters are going to be well established, and her primary responsibility is going to be laying new eggs solely. I mean, she's still doing that now as they build the comb inside the conical nest, but she's also still going out and foraging, since her role hasn't really shifted solely to motherhood. So there's a couple different stages of adults here. There's primarily we're seeing the newer adults, and you can tell that they're newer because they're a little bit bigger. And what happens is, once the nest is first being constructed by the queen, the cells are a little bit smaller, and they're not receiving as much nutrition or as much food, because it's solely the queen that's going out and foraging and coming back, and then also trying to build the nest at the same time. So unfortunately, it seems sad, but she isn't able to supply them with so much sustenance that makes them bigger. So as the nest becomes more productive and you get more adults coming out, then there's more food coming in for the larvae that are there, and they get fed more, so that when they hatch, they're larger adults. So what we're seeing here are primarily the larger adults. This is a really neat little tidbit here that I wanted to include, and I ended up slowing it down. So you see this one adult ends up coming out here. It's the one on the left of the hole right now. And when she comes out, she starts fanning the whole of the nest. And this is a thermal regulation thing that these yellow jackets do. And what she is doing, she senses a temperature increase inside the nest and starts fanning it down. And I just thought that was so cool. I was able to get, I'm sure I'll be getting more shots of that as the nest gets bigger, but I was really excited to include that. And even though that was slowed down pretty hard, you still couldn't see her wings beating. That's how fast that they're beating there. So I was really happy to be able to get that shot. So this is probably like day 4 in the series here for this time lapse, and it has just been at this point there's usually about at least 2 adults working on the nest at a time, and actually what you can't see in the image is some of them on the back side of the nest. And you can see here you got 4 adults outside doing things on the nest and checking it out and scoping it out, see where things need to be built and what things need to be chewed on, and so it just gets to be pretty busy frenzy of activity. So I was able to get some close-up shots of some more of the ribbon being laid. So like here, I was able to get some pretty neat shots of this adult laying the foundation for the little strip of envelope that she was going to be attaching to the nest. And what's cool is you can really see in this, I know I was able to get it on the spout nest video, but on this one you can really see how she uses her mandibles a lot like a rolling pin for like making cookie dough, and like puts the strip of the paper down and then starts like smushing it to where it like rolls out into a nice flat piece of envelope. And so people ask me in the comments, and I know I've explained this in other videos, they ask how the adults make the paper. So what they do is they'll go out and they fly and land onto rotting wood, whether that be like plywood or fence posts or whatever, or even just fallen branches, and they'll chew the cellulose, or they'll chew on the wood, and what they're pulling out is the cellulose, which is like the fibrous material. And what they do is they chew it, and it mixes with their saliva in their mouth, and as they fly back to the nest, it gets really, really liquidy in their mouth. And when they get back onto the nest, they will then attach like a ribbon, what I call a ribbon of material of this cellulose mixed up into their saliva, and then they start mashing it out with their mandibles. And sometimes you'll see them lay just one single strip, and then they'll go inside the nest and they'll come back out, almost like as if they're waiting for it to temper up a little, and then they start mushing it, like as if maybe it was a little bit too wet. So it's really neat to see. So this is a good close-up shot of watching her do that. So she had a glob of the cellulose mixed with her saliva in her mouth, and she comes back to the nest and then just starts mashing it and making it into that fine piece of paper. And sometimes in these time lapse, when you see them going back and forth along the edge like that, you can see that it's a dark strip. And then as time progresses in the video, you see that that strip then gets really light to look like the rest of the nest. So as that cellulose fibrous material dries, then it's like right here. So she's going over, it's kind of dark, and over this time you'll see it go from this dark gray to like a really light gray. So you kind of see it start to happen now at the far edge of it, and it'll just keep doing that until it's completely dry. And typically you won't see them start laying over that same spot until it is pretty well dried up. So this is about probably day 6. Again, frenzy of activity. I mean, they're just like nonstop. Each one of them comes back, lays a little bit of paper, goes in, gets some sustenance, and right back out they go. This one up on the top left is incorporating more of the wire into the envelope too. So you can see a bunch of ribs up top there where they connect it to the different points of the wire and chew down other parts. And I think that I've even watched them chew a little bit on the rubber, on the plastic that sheathing for the wire. People asking comments, I'll address it. People ask if the wires are attached to anything electrical wise. No, they're not electrical wires here. They're solely for structure. So this is day 7, and this is the whole. I mean, they were able to incorporate the envelope all the way down to that traditional conical shape the bald-faced hornets usually make their nests into. The one at the top is making these like little horns that are going to probably be attached to the tree at some point. So I was able to get a really neat shot here. This is an adult carrying out a dead larva. You can see it's black, and so it must have died inside the cell, and you haul it out and fly it away, which I thought was really cool. So this is what I have update wise for now, guys. If you guys haven't subscribed already and you're new here, please subscribe and come back. I have update videos coming up for my spout nest and for the lamp nest. And I do have a cool little surprise to talk over with you guys. So if you guys would come back and check out the next update, I'm going to have some pretty interesting news. So I'm excited to share that with you. All right, guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Thanks for coming back, and I'll see you next time.